Hi, this is Travis here at Exercise Lab with another video for you guys. So I'm a doctor of physical therapy for those of you who don't know me, and I want to talk to you guys today about something they call micro workouts, which is just kind of a new age way of saying, press for time workouts, workouts where you're kind of in a hurry, don't have a lot of time to spend in the gym. And so you want something short and sweet that's going to kind of give you the most, bang for your buck. And so what are, some strategies on how you might want to put that together? What are some pitfalls and some things I see where maybe people go a little too far off course on how to do that? Obviously well-intentioned, but there are certain exercises that I don't think lend themselves very well to kind of a short burst, high intensity style of workout. So I'll be talking to you guys about how to put that together, what's going to give you the most bang for your buck and hopefully keep you in it for the long hauls. And so if you're interested in learning a little bit more about how to do that, go ahead and stay tuned and we'll get started. All right, so before we actually get into the meat and potatoes and talk about the exercises specifically, I want to put a couple of caveats out there. And one of them is your form does need to be somewhat, proficient and pretty decent enough to where you can also recognize when the form is starting to slip a little bit. And so I might say in this video, a squat's a good exercise, but if your squat form is not that good, then I'd say it's probably not a good exercise for you, at least not yet. And so make sure you're keeping that in the back of your mind. Make sure you're spending that time to build up that foundation and you're pretty proficient at it before you start incorporating, higher intensity techniques and stuff like that. And, that's a pitfall that I think a lot of CrossFitters tend to fall into is, they might see an exercise or they have a workout and, objectively that's a good exercise. When you're doing it under really high volume and then really high fatigue, your form just starts breaking down, you get repetitive stress injuries, and then, off you go. You got hurt before you really got the results you wanted. Or maybe you did get the results you wanted, but you're constantly kind of playing this game of cat and mouse with injuries all the time. And so that doesn't really get you very far. And certainly, even if you can play that game right now because you're young and somewhat able-bodied and fit, you're probably not going to be able to play that game for the next couple of decades. So that's another thing to think about. I talked about this in my longevity video, so feel free to check that out as well. So on that note, I want to give you the exercises that I think are going to be helpful also from a sort of longevity perspective, keeping in mind that you're not just working out for tomorrow, you're working out for hopefully the next 10, 20, 30 years plus. And so that's always a good, concept to sort of keep in the back of your mind. So all that being said, hopefully your form is going to be somewhat good on some of these exercises. If not, there's always substitutions, and I'll try to speak to some of those at the end. But all that being said, let's go ahead and get started and talk about the exercise. All right, so if I was just trying to do a real short and sweet workout, didn't have a lot of time, what are going to be my exercise pairings? Where you're not going to get away from, again, those kind of big 5 pillars that I've spoken to in other videos. Basically your big pushes, your big pulls. You have your squat, deadlift, effectively, and then carrying type of exercises. So you're going to probably want to try to draw from those movements particularly because they're going to work the most muscle groups at the same time, which will effectively give you the most bang for your buck. And so I think a really good pairing would be an exercise like doing a Romanian deadlift. And I'll go ahead and I'm not going to necessarily run through these as a workout per se, but I'll kind of mock them up so you can see what I mean. And so I think an exercise like a pull, which is, a deadlift, you can kind of also think of loosely as a pull. So, I'm going to do a deadlift, and basically I'm going to do the Romanian style where I start out from the top. And then I'm going to pair that with a push-up just because that'll start to get my upper half, some of my big pushing muscles across the front of my upper chest, shoulders, and arms. And so that'll be a nice pairing where I'm basically getting the backside as well as the front side, and I'm also contrasting, a pull with a push. So I think that works out pretty nicely. Effectively, just take the bar from the top. You're going to try to take that bar straight down for a little kiss on the floor. I typically will take it down for a little kiss, keeping your spine neutral. And again, I'm not going real heavy here just to show you guys, I'd rack that, get down on the ground. And again, I could have a weighted vest on here if these are pretty easy for me. And then off I would go. I could either take a little rest at this point, or I could incorporate something else. And so something else could be kind of more in the aerobic cardio type of department. I could throw in something like some jumping jacks. I could get down on the ground. I could do some mountain climbers. So I could hop down here, or even just stay in my push-up position, do a mountain climber. I could get down, do a burpee type of movement. Again, all kind of in the body weight category. If you wanted to kind of break off from that a little bit, if you have a battle rope, certainly you could do singles, you could do doubles with a battle rope. That'd be a great way to get the heart and lungs going. Hop on a bicycle, do an intense interval. Again, maybe 30 to 60 seconds, high speed. Then take a little break. If you have a jump rope laying around, hop on one of those just to kind of get that heart rate up a little bit. And that'd be a nice way to, maybe add in a third leg on something like this. And you could do that, again, deadlift, push up, that third thing, say, again, jumping jacks or, jumping rope. And then take a little break after that third one, so after the jumping jacks, and then go ahead and repeat that cycle again. That could be a nice way to mix in some cardio as well. So again, there's a lot of room you could play around with it. On the other hand, I could also just do my, push pull, keep it simple, do as many cycles of that until I get gassed. And then at the very end, add in that cardio component if I wanted to. So maybe, say, doing 3 to 5 cycles of this takes me, anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes. And then all of a sudden, I would do maybe just a couple sets of jumping jacks, for instance, or a couple sets of burpees, something like that, just to kind of polish off a little bit of a cardio component. Be a pretty nice way to get the heart rate up as well. And so again, part of this is going to be dependent on time. So, I'm not going to say this is a 7-minute workout. I'm not going to say it's a 10. It really just depends. There might be a day you have 15 minutes. You could lend a little more time to this. That being said, if you had, say a lagging body part you wanted to bring up, well, then maybe do your push, your pull, and then, hey, throw in some curls while you're at it. Why not? So it doesn't necessarily have to be a cardio component. I think we kind of fall in that trap of like, I need to get the heart lungs going in order to get a really effective workout. And, while to a degree that may be true, there's no reason why you couldn't do an accessory exercise from time to time as well. So also keeping that in your back of your mind. Again, there's a lot of ways you can play around with this. And so I think part of it is, have fun, bring up your lagging body parts, but you're also trying to get somewhat of a good workout. But I think if you did, again, pretty solid, RDL with a push-up and even threw in some curls, that'd still be a pretty effective workout. And again, the curls is still a plus if we're thinking we're going to only initially do just the push and the pull. So kind of anything else after that is icing on the cake as far as I'm concerned. But, if you really want to get the most bang for your buck, then yeah, probably throwing in something a little more like a battle rope, because then you're not just getting biceps, you're also going to be getting, your back and shoulder muscles, you're getting a lot of your postural stabilizers. So yes, from a muscle recruitment standpoint, the battle rope would probably give you a little more bang for your buck, but that's there for you. All right, so for my next pairing, I'm going to do step-ups, and I'm going to pair that together with some TRX rows. And I could have picked squats on this one, and I was thinking about it, but if you saw my longevity video, you'll see that I talk about why I think squats are a great exercise, but I don't do them as frequently as I used to. I've kind of backed them off into what I call maintenance mode, and I speak to that in that video, and I'm not going to talk about it again here. But feel free to check that out. But basically, I'm at a point where I try to maintain my squats. I don't tend to train them as often. And so I think step-ups is a better exercise, longevity-wise, as far as just kind of building up your leg strength, preserving your back, getting a really good cardio aspect as well. And so I think it would lend itself really nicely to this kind of micro workout idea. Again, high intensity, getting the heart rate up. The good news here, too, is if your form starts breaking down on the step-up, not probably as much is going to go wrong as could on, say, a heavier barbell squat. So I like that aspect of doing step-ups. And again, you can get pretty heavy on these as well, with dumbbells, weighted vests, those types of things. And then TRX row, same type of deal. I could throw a weighted vest on for those as well if I'm getting to a point where my body weight's not that challenging. And so let me go ahead and show you how I would mock that up now. So step-ups again, nothing too fancy here. I like to bring up my trailing leg just for a tap to kind of leave that tension a little bit longer on my, stance leg. And I try to do it not where I'm purely pushing here, but I try not to have a huge contribution on my floor leg. So I'm not trying to do like a really explosive, calf raise there, essentially. I'm trying to do the majority of the work with the leg that's on the box, and then just kind of give maybe a little push off. If I had to quantify it, I'm hopefully trying to do about 25-ish% of it, maybe with my bottom leg, just a little toe off there, but not a whole bunch, right? And so I'd run through that, grab my TRX, and certainly if you didn't have a TRX and you had like a Smith machine, you can get under a Smith machine and you can simulate this as well. I just like having the freedom of the handles. Okay, so I could come in here, again, choose your angle according to how difficult you need it to be. And again, I like to just kind of add that little spin there, but it's not essential. Sometimes, again, you could even mix and match your angles, but if I'm really trying to get the most bang for my buck, I'd probably keep it a little more of that horizontal, because that's where I'm going to be stronger. And again, in my case, if I was really trying to get myself, a higher intensity, I would be a little bit steeper, but I'm just trying to demonstrate this for you guys. But that's a nice way, again, similarly, you're trying to incorporate a lot of those big back, pulling muscles. So you're not leaving a lot of things untouched in the shoulder girdle area. You're also getting some bicep, even some tricep, because the long head, does engage in shoulder extension. So nice way to get a lot of the upper back muscles there. Nice way to get some legs with the step-ups. And so, in this case, I'm not necessarily doing a lot for my pushing muscles. So, chest is not getting a whole bunch of work here. But, with the other pairing, deadlift and push-up, I kind of covered that there. So certainly if you felt like you wanted a little more emphasis, you can always mix and match these. Not to say it's like an end-all be-all. I think this pairing just lends itself pretty nicely to sort of more of a pulling type emphasis, with some nice lower body. And then same thing as before, add in a third leg if you wanted to, add in an accessory, exercise, add in something maybe the more of the cardio wheelhouse, certainly the battle rope or something of that nature. And I think it'd be a pretty nice way to get yourself somewhere in that 10-ish minutes, short and sweet burst of exercise. All right, so I'm going to give you guys one more pairing, and it's going to be a split squat with a pull-up. And so, again, I'm going to just kind of assume you guys don't have a lot of space. Now with the split squat, I'm going to basically just do it kind of purely here, staggered stance. Again, you could certainly, once again, have a barbell. You could have dumbbells. I could have a weighted vest on. The sky's the limit with those. And really what I like to do on this one is kind of go straight down, almost like an elevator ride, and then come back up. Many people, as they're doing this, they'll kind of do, more of a forward thing, and sometimes they'll even raise that toe. And so you're not really doing, it's not a forward, it's really more of a down. And so I would just, do that until I felt like I was at a point where, again, this leg is pretty out of gas, and then switch. And that would be how I would do this kind of in a tighter space. Now, you certainly could lunge, though, if you like the way that feels and you like to kind of lunge. You could do something like this as well. Just, basic forward lunge. I kind of like, actually, if you're going to do that, doing more of a reverse lunge. And so you step back rather than forward. And I like that kind of eccentric emphasis you get when you sort of step back on that. So that could be a nice way to pair that. And certainly the traveling lunge is a great one. So if you have some runway, you're not really confined to a tighter space, nice day outside or something like that, the traveling lunge is just take that step, and then you just repeat that again, take that step. And, again, you can do forward and back. There have been points where, I've certainly done reverse traveling lunges. You step back, down, step back. That's a pretty effective way, I think, to get some hip and thigh, again, similarly to what you're going to get in the step up, just a little bit of a different emphasis. And so that's a nice way to get those heart and lungs going. And all of a sudden you run over to your pull-up bar. I bought the fat grips up here. You don't necessarily have to have these. I think fat grips are great just because, again, it challenges the grip a little bit more. Certainly, though, you can just grab your standard pull-up bar, come in here and do your pull-ups. Okay, and again, for whatever number that target number was, then off you go. And, same thing as the other two. I'd say you could also throw in that third leg, something like some mountain climbers maybe at this point. On this one, again, you're not really getting a lot of chest emphasis. You get some pecs when you're doing a pull-up. You're not necessarily getting as much as obviously the back. The back is doing the work. And so for that reason, if you want to do something, say like a mountain climber, well, then at least statically, you get a little more chest. But no reason why, if you really want to go ham, you certainly could do pull-ups, and then you could also do push-ups, right? So you could actually add in a third wheel on this if you wanted to. That could even be another exercise from this. So, kind of like what we might call a giant set rather than a super set. So if you wanted to, step-ups, pull-ups, push-ups, and that'd be a pretty cool trio as well. So again, it just depends on how much time you have and what you're trying to emphasize. And that's the point I've tried to hopefully hammer in on this video, is that, there's a lot of flexibility with this type of stuff. I wouldn't say these are the end-all be-all, but the cool thing is you're touching on most of the big players in the upper and the lower half, getting a lot of bang for your buck. So I think if you can kind of settle on these exercises as far as your staples for a micro workout, it'll be a pretty effective exercise session, even though you don't necessarily have a lot of time. Now, one of the things I also wanted to mention in this video is that you probably noticed these are all full body, right? So we're doing something for the lower, we're doing something for the upper, and that's basically because my assumption is you don't have a lot of time. You probably haven't done any other exercise sessions that week, and so you just need to try to cover as many bases as you can. And that's why I try to give this sort of layout. But that being said, if you did work out on Monday and Wednesday, and then on Friday, that's the day you have to do the micro workout, but you already kind of did a nice job hitting your legs, say on Wednesday, you could do more of an upper half emphasis on this. And there's certainly nothing wrong with that either. So if you wanted to, you could do basically all upper half. You could do your pull-ups, do your push-ups maybe, for instance. And then again, if you want to, bring up biceps, as I keep saying, throw in some curls, right? I don't know why I keep talking about biceps, but throw in some curls, throw in some triceps. Maybe you neglected your core, so you didn't get the chance to, do your bird dogs. So go ahead and throw your bird dogs in. I didn't mention that earlier. Good news is if you did something like a mountain climber, you're sort of covered a little bit there, but maybe you want extra, core emphasis. So yeah, so throw your bird dogs in there, do something more in that kind of accessory category. And, again, I think that stuff's all fine. So within the context of what you've done in the week, what your broader goals are, I think that'll kind of direct you to what you might want to do. Now, if you're just kind of a novice and you don't really know what your goals are, you just want to get more fit, then I'd say, yeah, pick the big 5 kind of things here. Again, push, pull, deadlift, squat, a carry type thing. I didn't mention that in this video, but yeah, certainly a farmer's carry could be another thing to do. So again, keep an eye on the fatigue, keep an eye on the form. I think these workouts, generally speaking, though, if you were to just do, the pairing. So again, my pairings, just to review again, was deadlift and push-up. Another pairing was TRX row with step-ups. And then the third pairing was a split squat, lunge type of thing with a pull-up. But if you were to pick one of those 3 just those 3 pairings, you probably could definitely knock this out in less than 10 minutes. Again, 30 to 60-second rest periods, say if you were to do somewhere around that 3 to 5 cycles of that. And, again, if you're choosing weights that are fairly appropriate for you, I think that probably would get you there pretty effectively. One last thing I wanted to mention in this video is you can get stronger doing this stuff, but I wouldn't necessarily say this is true strengthening, right? Because with true strengthening, you're going to have lower rep ranges. So typically with true strengthening, you're doing somewhere between 1 and 5 on the repetition range, right? And so the thing with that is you're going to need longer rest periods, definitely more than that 30 to 60 seconds before your next set. Research shows it can take 5 to 7 minutes even to recuperate from a really heavy set. You're going close to failure before you can go back to that second set again. So that type of training I don't think really lends itself well to these workouts. So I'm thinking rep ranges on most of these are somewhere probably more that 8 to 12 to 15-ish category. So that's something I didn't mention in the beginning of the video. But, this is more in that kind of hypertrophy domain, so to speak, which is basically that muscle building rep range, which, there is, again, some overlap with strength. It's not like there's no strengthening that happens at, 10 repetitions. It's just not to the degree that you would if you're trying to hit those triples, for instance. And so I think this stuff, again, is going to be more that high intensity category. And so you're not going to want to lift super heavy, So this is kind of, think about that moderately heavy. Hopefully on the first set out of the gate, obviously on the subsequent cycles, your repetitions might trail off a little bit, but on the first one, you should probably definitely land somewhere between, again, 8 to 15-ish on the rep count. But say if you're strong enough to do 20 or 30 push-ups, if you don't have a weighted vest, I think that's probably fine. I don't think it's going to be a deal breaker. People think that, if you do more than 15 reps, it's just going to be endurance only. That's not necessarily true. You can still build up some hypertrophy, and that actually might be a nice opportunity to use some BFR, some blood flow restriction training, or the bands, which I did talk about in another video. So feel free to check that out. And that would obviously assume also that you're somewhat familiar with BFR. If you don't even know what BFR is, I wouldn't try it for your first time with a micro workout like this. But assuming that you've already used BFR and your technique on these exercises is pretty good, I think it could be a nice way to just get a little more bang for your buck for a short and sweet session like this. And because usually with BFR, you want to keep those bands on for about 5 to 10 minutes anyways, which probably would get you through this 10-minute workout, pretty nicely. So just food for thought, but again, not critical or essential. But I hope that was okay. I guess it wasn't exactly a micro video, even though we were talking about micro workouts. But there are some caveats, as always, on this stuff. So and it's not as simple always as just saying, here's a workout, go do that. I mean, that might work for a little while, but for a lot of people, there are subtleties, and the devil's in the details sometimes. And, particularly for those of you, I'm hoping you're going to want to work out for the long haul. It does pay to know this stuff. And so definitely comment below. Let me know what you guys think. Subscribe if you like this stuff. More good content in the pipeline. I'm still going to try to reshoot a few older videos that the audio quality was not that good, but also some new content coming up as well. So stay tuned for that. And as always, I hope you guys have some fun.